Arizona loses its first place status. We are now officially in a low demand market. And I finally get that whole thing done where I'm talking about how you price your house out on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Hi there. This is Charles Ray Dawson, residential sales manager, associate broker at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 74. All right. Sorry about the slow intro on that. You know, I hit record, did the countdown, and when that thing hit 0, my brain turned off. Right? It's that kind of week so far, and it's only Wednesday when I'm recording this. And once again, recording on Wednesday because my Thursday has packed up with everything I got going on. And so, you know, we had like 3 things come up over the course of this week and whatnot. One of them was just this morning. There's a podcast I listen to in the morning. It's called the, let me get you exactly what the name of this thing is, because this is a great podcast. I'm a big fan of it. And, of course, my phone suddenly does not want to work properly. It's called the President's Daily Brief. All right. So the President's Daily Brief is a former CIA agent. I can't remember his name. And he gives you about a 15, 20-minute sort of morning brief in the style that the president gets, right? For you guys who don't read any Tom Clancy or anything like that, every morning, the national security agencies get together and they present the president over his coffee and biscuit what's called the morning brief. And it's everything that happened yesterday, what happened last night, what do you need to know going into the day. And this guy does this a lot in the same format. Now, he doesn't necessarily cover the news. I mean, you get more just turning on, the morning news and they'll be talking about stuff you don't care about. But what he does do is he talks about, pretty much like the high end stuff. Hey, this is what's going on in Ukraine. This is what's going on down in the border, that kind of stuff. And today he actually mentioned Phoenix, Arizona and flippers. All right, and calling out that here in Phoenix, we have the highest percentage of properties that are being sold to flippers. And I think he said it was like 18%. And that this impacts by pricing houses up. And by pricing houses up means less people could buy. And that means more people have to rent, which more people going into the rental market pushes up rental prices. And I agree with pretty much everything on that. One caveat I would have with his statement, I do encourage you to start listening to this podcast if you're a podcast person, is that the one caveat that I have is that when a house is flipped, and that does not necessarily mean that it is taking a house that is livable, all right, and adding value to it, making it prettier, and then selling it at a higher price. In a lot of cases, the houses that are being bought by flippers at the prices that a flippers can buy it at and afford to make money off of are houses that have had so much deferred maintenance on them. All right, the carpets are shot. The paint is old. The appliances don't work anymore. The kitchen is dated. There's a hole in the roof. All of these things. This is the houses flippers like to pick up. And so, in his particular case, he sees inventories coming at the lower end of the market, whatnot, and getting moved to the higher end of the market, and that's correct. But a lot of times these houses are unlivable. They're not insurable. And when we talk about insurable, it means FHA, VA is not going to touch these things. You might be able to get a conventional loan on them. But they really do serve a purpose. I mean, I've used this example before and I'll use it again. They're like the vultures and buzzards, right? They pick over the carcasses, right? And, I have buyers all the time, and they come in, they want to do the sweat equity thing. It's like, I want to find the house that can put the most amount of sweat equity in. And we have a conversation about what you can do and what you can't do. And then I show them the sweat equity houses. Next thing you know, they're dumping the whole sweat equity plan, just trying to find a place that needs paint. So flippers, they do something. Not as bad as an impact as second homes, vacation homes, and of course, Airbnb. All right. So those are still higher percentage, higher impact across the board. So editorial aside. So the other bit of news that came out this morning, and I never did get. My broker was supposed to send me a copy of this article because it was behind a paywall. But we are no longer leading the nation in housing growth, price growth. Right? We're like number 3 now. All right, and of course, depending on how you read the headlines and the way the headlines are rewritten by people who are writing it for their own publications, you're going to see Phoenix housing drops. All right, what that means is that instead of looking at that 24% appreciation year over year, all right, now we're down less than that, but we're still appreciating. So once again, don't just read the headlines, read the body of the article. If I actually had a link to a copy of that, I'd put in the show notes below, but I don't just yet. It's just something I just looked at, glanced over, and then got first 3 paragraphs in. But I was able to track it down on Zero Hedge, so maybe I'll pull that off and put it down below. So that's your second bit of news today. Third bit of news is we are coming into we have, by my lights, officially hit lower than normal demand. All right, so let's go to the numbers and I'll explain to you what I mean by that. All right, so look, numbers. All right, so these are the numbers for June 29th, 2022. Actives this week are 13,786. That's the most we've seen since about May of 2020. We are up 1,128 from the week before. New listings were 2,972, which is down 76 from last week. Our pendings this week are 1,365, down 48. Under contracts looking for backups are at 842, up 38. Contracts with the buyer's contingency on sale is 123, which is up 1. And our closings this week were 1,821, and coming soon to an MLS near you is 1,103. So, new record again. There we are. We did not add as many properties this at the same rate, all right, as we did last week. All right, but we are still moving up on active. You can see pendings are still dropping. There's that contracts with buyers contingencies that I'm always harping about. It's up to 123 now, brand new record on that. All right, see, and under contracts looking for backups are up at 842. One of the numbers I don't have on the screen that I was looking at is back on markets. All right, houses that have fallen out for whatever reason under contract, and now they're going back on the market. And that was actually a low number. That one's actually trending down. And I'm starting to wonder if that's not sellers accepting repairs. Going to be fun to see when that starts happening. So the bins they're more likely to come back to the buyer and not say take it or leave it the way they used to. And so that's really, or you get a bad appraisal and they agree to change the purchase price, or they seem to be more willing as a seller to work with buyers when something weird goes on in the inspection or the appraisal. So as you can see right here, we are now at 89 demand. And like I've been saying since I started running this, we consider below 90 low demand. All right, anything between 90 and 110 is considered, normal. Anything above 110 is considered high demand. We have now officially hit at 89. We are now considered low demand here in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, the funny thing is, when I looked at that this morning, that was 89.4 for yesterday's numbers. Right, but then it updated when I copied it over again, and now it's at 89. And we can see our supply is actually up to 48. That is still less than half the houses on the market we expect to see. All right, historically, with our population, with the population that we have here in the area that the MLS covers, all right, we should have more than double what we have active. We should be about 26, 27 right now. All right, but we still at half demand, or half supply. But there we are. We're now in low demand. Now, remember, guys, it's the ratio of these two numbers. It's the ratio of these two numbers that creates where we're at, right? We can still say this is a seller's market even with low demand, right? Because we don't have that much supply, right? So I really think these numbers right here are why we're starting to see sellers surrender on Benzers and appraisals. Right? They're scared because they've been hearing about low demand. They've been seeing this delta change come out and everything, and it's got them scared. Right? So, what does this mean to you guys out there in the market? Well, if you're a buyer You are possibly still going into multiple offers, especially on the first weekend. All right, you should still be coming in with your best and highest offer every time. I would strongly discourage you from coming in with a ridiculously low number. All right, feel free to offer whatever it is you want to offer. Right, you tell me a number, I'll write it down. I might roll my eyes. I might tell you straight up, I don't think this one's going to get accepted. Right, but in some cases, you're just trying to start the conversation. Now, that doesn't mean you can't potentially piss the seller off, and they don't even bother to counter you back. All right, so be reasonable about these things, right? But don't feel like you have to offer 10, 15, 20, 30,000 over asking. All right, on any day that's not the first weekend, and even then, take other things into consideration. All right, if you show up to the property, all right, and there's a waiting line to get inside, all right, then you might want to consider it, especially if the house is really, really stellar. If you come into the open house and you glance at the signature sign-in sheet, all right, and it's got like 30 names on that, then you might want to consider doing that. Other than that, I would going into that situation, I wouldn't get too crazy. And I don't even think you need to start out offering, waiving the appraisals. Right? Let them counter back on that if that's an issue. All right. I never encourage people waiving inspections. All right. I will guarantee that they're not going to ask for a repair and there'll be a go no go off the inspection. All right. But always keep that in your back pocket. So, yeah, we're returning to normal. All right. At least what agents that have been around more than the last 3 years considered normal. All right. Remember, the numbers that we're looking at right now here really, really do reflect what was happening about February, March, and April of 2020, before the big boom came. The COVID crash hit, all right, which drove a whole bunch of inventory onto the market. A whole bunch of buyers came off the market, and that's about the time they started dropping the interest rates like crazy, which gave us the big run up. That was all of last year. So, all right. Now, the other thing you need to look at in this market, and when you're on the seller side, is these are no longer the days of honey and bliss where you could just throw your property out there with a ridiculously high price and get 50 offers on the first weekend. All right. The difference between your house selling in the first couple weeks and your house being on the market, for a couple months, all right, is where you get your starting price of. Now, I've been promising you guys and talking about this for the last 2 weeks about how we do CMAs, BPOs, whatever you want to call it, how we come up with our prices for properties and what we, as we advise you, we think you should list it at this, right? And, I probably spent about 2 hours today going through everything, including going through my old backup drive, trying to find this essay that I wrote that turned into a blog post for my old blog. That, as more and more as I started, research, how am I going to give this video and whatnot, I kept coming down to that blog. And I said, hell, I should go find that blog. Out of all the blog posts that I've ever copied and saved before I posted, for some reason I can't find that one. Right? So we're just going to wing it today. All right? Stand by, guys. We're going to have fun here. So let's talk about real estate. All right? And let's talk about this kind of real estate. In fact, hold on, to be continued in part 2. Okay, made the screen a little bit bigger so we can see everything when I do this. So, when you're looking at a property and you're going through the, starting the process, all right, of valuing a house. House that we're going to use right here is a house that I pulled out a bunch of properties and to assign to my agents for when I gave them a homework assignment to do, price this property for me. All right, come back and we'll talk about what you did and how you did it. All right, and this one didn't get assigned, so it's been assigned to myself. So, doing one of these things generally takes you about an hour, a little bit more than an hour. we have multiple ways to come up with a quickie CMA, just like a bam, okay, this is it. All right. National Association of Realtors has a site that you type in the address, it will give you a ballpark number. When this first came out, it was relatively accurate. I mean, it was, if it had a 5-star rating on the price, you could be assured that that came within 5% of the property, right? With a couple caveats, all right? And this, like any other online system, all right, it cannot look inside the house. Right. It's just going off of public record stuff. So what's closed recently, how old is your house, that kind of stuff. But it can't see the fact that you've let the kids paint their own bedrooms. Right. It can't see that your 15 years of cats and dogs have destroyed the carpets and did hideous things to it. It can't detect whether or not your kitchen has never ever been remodeled since 1948. All right. So those are never really good numbers to work with, right? But hopefully at the point where we're looking at your property, I've seen it, right? Sometimes I do have to have a CMA on the fly. It's like I'm coming out there and guesstimating your property based on what you told me. And the first time I'm seeing it is when I'm coming in there to have you sign the listing agreement. And the listing agreement does have the price on it, right? That's why we have to get that done before this. But, in a perfect world, we've seen it, said, hey, we'll come back in a couple days. Let me do my research, get everything worked up, and I'll tell you what we can list your place for. So in this case, since this is a random house that I picked, I obviously have not been inside the house, right? So we're just going to guesstimate. So this is sort of like doing one of those home CMAs on the house that we haven't seen yet. All right. So the house that I picked, all right, is this one right here. All right, and let's go to the listing. All right, it's 4609 West Park Place. All right, great. All right, we look at this property. All right, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to print this sheet up. All right, this is the property sheet. Old school agents call it the Plano. Don't know what that stands for. Probably listing something, I'm sure. Right, and first thing I tell people, just ignore this price. All right, that don't even put that in your brain. All right, this house was sold back in 2012. All right, that is not the price anymore. But what we are getting off of this is we're getting off the important stuff that we need. We got how many square feet it is, what year was it built, whether or not it has a pool or not. Very important here in Arizona. All right, whether or not it has an RV gate. All right. And whether or not, it has covered parking or slab parking. Slab parking is your driveway or a carport. Covered spaces can be a garage. All right. So these are the big tickets. And notice that this one right here has a fireplace. This gives us pretty much everything we need to know. We also know where it's located in the big scheme of things. All right. It's right here, southwest of the intersection of Bell and 43rd Avenue. And taking that information right there, we're now going to start a search. All right. Now, appraisers like to go geographical distance around a property. All right. A lot of times they will just click, draw a circle out, go out and how many miles. They are trying to find the houses as close as possible. All right. They also don't like going across major roads. Right. And they don't necessarily like going into other subdivisions, all right? Because, newer builds happen, new subdivision. You don't want to use a house inside a gated community with a $500 a month, HOA fee, right? For your double wide, even though it's right next door to it, on the other side of the 30-foot wall separating you from the gentry class, right? You still can't use that as a comp, right? So what I like to do if I know the neighborhood, right, is I try to pick like houses in like areas. Now, notice I did not go across Bell, right? Because as soon as you cross Bell here, you get into Bel Air, right? Different neighborhood, different types of houses, right? So 59th, we went to 35th, right? Bell to Greenway. And what I'm looking for is generally I like to do 5, right? Appraisers, they say they need to do at least 3. All right. In this particular case, I came up with 4. All right. You run the search. Now, look, we're only looking at closed houses here. Right? We are not looking at anything pending because we don't know what it actually closed at. We don't look at anything coming soon. We don't look at anything for sale. We only use houses that have sold for our comps. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not going out to a listing agreement, you don't already know every house on the street or in the neighborhood that are already for sale, because guarantee you, your sellers will know. All right. They've probably been through every open house on that, sort of comparing it to theirs. And so you're going to need to familiarize yourself with everything going on in that area. All right, but in this particular case, we're looking at what's sold. Now, I generally start this search, all right, going back 90 days, right? Because these are the freshest, most accurate properties, right? And as you can see, we got 3 of them that closed within the last 90 days. Appraisers will go back more than that. Right? They can go back as much as 180 days. Right? In fact, I've had appraisers go back almost a year, like 11 months back. Right? And we'll have that conversation when we get to it. But right, I try to start with the newer ones, work my way back. All right. In this case, at 120 days, 4 months, right, I got 4. All right. Now, you also always select whatever the dwelling type is. Do not take a townhome and try to apply it to your single family dwelling. Right. Another good thing to keep an eye out is make sure you have interior levels. All right. You cannot use 2-story houses to comp a single-story house. Notice one just disappeared right there. All right. Let me turn that on and off again. You can see it flash on and flash off. All right. It comes back. And it goes away. All right, so I just screened that comp out. All right, and the other thing we do is we look at the year built. You can go 5 years older, 5 years newer. Of course, the closer the better. All right, the El Dorado of comps are the same subdivision, built in the same year with the same floor plan, because it's one of the 4 you got to choose from when you bought in that subdivision. That's only happened to me 2 or 3 times, right? Right, normally, you're having to make these major adjustments. So we got this knocked down to 3. All right, we have 3 listings. All right. Now notice I also dropped the swimming pool. If I wanted to add the pools on because I was short, all right, which you can. Now we got these, and we could use these and adjust off of that. And we're gonna describe adjusting later, right? But you know, I got 3 without having to adjust for pools, so that's a really good. Good place to work with, right? Now remember, our subject property on the map is right here, and our area that we're looking at is right here. So that's not a big distance away. That's well within bounds, right? So let's work with these 3. So we have 3 properties right here, all right? The lowest one is 385. All right, and then we have one at 415 and another one at 425. Now, looking at our old MLS sheet over here, details. All right, you can see that we have 1,606 square feet on this property. That was something else that I should have mentioned that we adjust for. All right, we go for the square footage, right, and generally 10% down and 10% up. All right, I like to do big 50s. All right, so at 1606 or 1608, whatever we were at, I'm going to go down to 1,450 square feet and up to 1,750. If I'm really hurting for comps and stuff, I might play around with that a little bit. Right, but like I said, we got our 3 that we needed. So, bang, 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 bang. Let's look at these 3 now. This listing that I use right here, all right, has a bunch of photos that are very, very old. All right. I mean, remember, these pictures are all 10 years old. We don't know if this is the original house right now. All right. But if we were to sit here and look at this original house and see this is the house that we have, we familiarize ourselves with, okay, we got carpet, all right. We got countertops. It's really hard to tell what a countertop, especially when somebody does not know how to light a photo. All right, geez, people. Did they even? Yeah, just turn the lights on. Turn the lights on. All you got is a white rectangle in the middle of darkness, right? I'm picky about pictures, in case you haven't noticed. Right? Fireplace, and we're getting a feel for the floor plan, looking at this thing. Oh, look, it's a step down, what I call a Karen killer, because that's a trip hazard, right? Older paint, older kitchen, or bathrooms. Got some nice tile in the bathroom, though, right? So let's say this house is exactly in the condition that it is today. All right, the pictures that you see are reality. Right? Oh, look, they have an alarm system secured by ADT. That's got to be fake grass. Right? Our house. You know, funny thing is, you're not allowed to put pictures up anymore with your sign in front. Yeah, that's a violation. So, anyways, here's our subject house. All right. And now we're looking at these three properties, right? Grandview, 48th, and 35th. Right? So what we do is we start going through and we go, all right, this one does not have a fireplace. Good to know. Remember that. All right. But no pool, same age, only a little bit bigger. Now, if you notice, we're not caring about bedrooms and bathrooms at this point. We're really not. Right. Square footage is the best way to do these things. All right. Now, in certain cases, 5 bedrooms and 1,300 square feet, you're going to have a bad day. Appraisers are going to take that into consideration. And really go through and make sure you actually have 5 bedrooms in there if you don't have 2 closets that you're trying to pass off as and then you go through and you familiarize yourself with the house through the pictures. All right. Now, this one's really interesting. Take a look at the flooring in the kitchen. All right. If you can see that, the way I see it, you are seeing that there is no flooring in the kitchen. That is concrete. All right. Counters, because of the hard corners and stuff like that, I'm going to assume that that's Formica. All right. Let's check the detail and whatnot and see if that's called out anywhere. Laminate counters. Okay. So we got Formica counters on that one. What do we have on our original? What did we say those were? Really can't tell from the pictures. Rounded corners is a good sign of some sort of stonework. Let's see what they had on the detail on that. Granite countertops. All right, big difference. Subject property, the house that you're selling, has granite, and this one doesn't. All right, this one has laminate and no tile or flooring in there. All right, so that's an adjustment we're going to make right there. Much better pictures, though, mind you. All right. Wood. You know what's interesting? I don't know if you can see this on the screen. See the little buckling right there? Where you can see the seams? That's never a good sign. All right. Remember that when you're looking at houses online. Countertops, possibly also granite with the beveling right there. Strange. Looks like they took better care of the bathrooms. Maybe this was a house and project. I love rolled top desks. I really do. Ceiling fans are old, need to be replaced. Backyard is not bad size. Just needs grass and probably irrigation redone. All right. So that property right there, we know we're going to write down a piece of paper, Grandview bathroom. All right. I mean kitchen. All right. You want to keep that in mind. Then we're going to go to the next one. This one came in at $415. Newer flooring. I recognize the floor plan already. Let's see. That's also got Formica countertops. Boy, that's an Arizona Plan A. Okay, so this right here, it's hard to tell whether or not that is actually that small because of the camera they used and the perspective they took when they took the picture, or if that kitchen is actually that small. Right? Because that doesn't look that bad. Right? This looks bad. That, not that bad. So, remember that when you're looking at photos, kids. Oh my God, there is a phone on the wall. When was the last time you saw one of those? All right. Flooring's good. Flooring's updated. There's some sort of weird texture on the wall right there. Or that could be wallpaper. I think it's wallpaper. All right. Good to know. All right. Popcorn ceilings. People either love them or hate them. Yeah, that's definitely wallpaper. All right. Notice these are all photos of just the living room. Somebody knows how to take a lot of photos. They managed to get a bathroom photo without themselves in it. Older style bathroom though. And notice, this house has got a lot of oldness to it, and it went for more than the $385 one does. All right, that's an old carpet. You can see the stains and everything right there. In fact, that looks like they had... You see that? That almost looks like they had something there, and when they painted, they just painted around the dresser. Or maybe they just didn't clean it, because you can look at that years and years of whatever build up there. You know, toenail clippings and skin dander. I hope nobody's eating when I'm talking about this. Oh, and by the way, remember kids, replace all your light bulbs in your house before you list it. And you don't have to replace them as much as you have to make sure every light bulb that should be lighting should be lighting. Right? That must be the master. Okay, so carpet needs to be replaced. You can see the buckling on that one. So condition, it's not as good as our subject property. Another ancient bathroom, utility room, workshop. Now workshops are fun. Do you add the value to them or not? Right. This one, because of the skylight and everything like that, this is obviously some sort of outdoor workshop. Does not add a lot of value unless you have air conditioning. But what you do get out of it is if an appraiser's on the bubble, all right, they remember these things. They will add it, but you can't really say every workshop equals $5,000, right? It's not how that works. But if they're sitting there and they're knocking it out, it's like, okay, 550, 565, something like that, this would lean them towards the 565. Backyard. All right. So what do we have with this one? Older condition. All right. 48th. Definitely not updated. And then we have our last one right here. Same type of yard. Same photographer. Ooh, boy, why does that look so small? Okay. Boy, that is... You know, that is not a lot of space in that kitchen once you walk into it. I notice they have a microwave on the side and not a microwave and a microwave up there. That's usually a sign that one of those two doesn't work. Utility room, that probably goes out to the garage. Ooh, tree house. Tree houses do not add value. All right, not a lot of photos to work with on this one. Really not a lot of photos. Notice there, did we see any bedrooms? I don't remember seeing a bedroom. Nope, no bedrooms. All right. So let's check the details out on that last one, though. Kitchen features. Doesn't say anything about the type of material. It is saying that the floor's been updated in 2019. Full. All right, that's a good sign. And the roof was updated in 2015, that's 7 years. That's about half the life of a roof, a little bit under. So that's almost a push. Now, brand new roof, first year on, adds value. Does it add all the value? All right, you put $20,000 into a roof and put $20,000 on top of the roof. Do you get that back? No, you really don't, right? A shot roof with obvious need of repair will damage the property, but it's almost a push. Now, if you notice, all of these houses that we looked at, All right. That one doesn't call out anything about the roof. That one does. This one right here is the only one that actually calls out any items updated. So these other two are pretty much to standard. Let's look at our imaginary subject property. All right. This house was sold in 2012 and was sitting there saying the floor was updated, all right, full in 2012. All right. All right. Kitchen was updated in 2012. Baths were updated. All right. So we obviously have a condition. This property right here is in better condition than the other two. So how do we deal with this? All right. And that one was 35th. Well, what appraisers do, all right, well, and I'll show you an appraisal right now just to show you how this works. This is an appraisal from a previous closing of mine. All right. And if you ever bought or sold a house, well, especially if you've ever bought one, you might have seen this, unless it was just worked really good and there wasn't anything to worry about. But the important information starts happening on about page 4 or 5 into it, all right? And this is where they do the comp stuff. Now I'm going to blow this up here. All right. So your subject property in this case is going to be 2222. Come on, recover. Oops. How unfun is that? Okay. That's right. I got the edit going on in this. But your subject property is going to be your property over here. And this is your first line is going to describe everything that's going on. All right. This is square footage of the lot, you know, what the style is, what this Q's that you see here is can't remember, but I do know C3 is considered condition, right? And it's going to say total amount of rooms, total bathrooms. And then they bring in the comparables. All right, and where they get the concept of adjustments on this, right? Now, I wanted to show. Now, this first line right here, they're actually literally adjusting for market time, right? How long ago since the house sold? And, you know, that's something that a lot of appraisers didn't do, right? But in a high appreciating market, they will actually add value to a property to bring it up to, all right? As you can see on this one, all right, they're going to have the house, the price that it's sold for. These are the price that these 3 houses sold for up here. And then you have your first adjustment. That adjustment in this case is age. It's gone up so much a month, so we're going to add that to the property, right? And then we're going to subtract a little bit for square footage difference. Now remember, our subject property in this example was smaller, all right? So they're knocking off 9,000 here, keeping the 1726 the same there, but this 1924 they're dropping 8,000. That's dropping the adjusted price of the comparable properties. All right. And then you can see this thing here, full remodel, like our subject property is. All right. We're going to consider our subject property a full remodel. This is a $20,000 shift here. All right. Remember that number. All right. Now, what we use over here, right? We have charts for this. I don't know if you can actually see that, but this is a chart that they put out, especially for FHA loans, that helps you have a set number to adjust off of, right? So in this particular case, subject property had a 1-car garage and a 2-car driveway. All right. This first comp here only had a 1-car carport and a 4-car driveway. That one garage is a $5,000 difference, right? So that garage is worth $5,000. So you add it to the comps. Right? This one over here had a 2-car garage. So we take that garage space off. So instead of these numbers that we were using up here, 335, 330, 317, the appraiser is now using these numbers down here. 317 with an $18,000 adjustment between the two, mostly for that full remodel. All right. And you know, this one comes down to 328, mostly because of the kitchen. This kitchen was comparable to our subject property, so there's no change there. But you get the adjustment for the extra garage space and the adjustment for the square footage. All right. And then the addition of $6,500 for the balance of 310. So we as real estate agents, we're going to do the same thing with these properties right here. So we open up. Use all of our selected. Do I want to use all the selected? Nope. Go back. I just want to use these, because remember we're dropping the 2-story property here. We don't want to use that one anymore. So CMA, use the 3 that we have selected. All right. You can do full CMA. This has got a lot of extra stuff coming in on top of it. All right. But for a quick one, especially for instructional purposes, we're just going to do this. Now, it's going to ask you, do you want the cover page? You want the property description? Do you want this, that, and the other thing? Yeah, that's great and wonderful. All right. But first thing we're going to do, type in client's name, Bob. It's amazing I have Bob there. I've used Bob so bad. All right. Type subject property address in, 4609. If anybody knows these people at this property, tell them I appreciate them letting me use their property for this. State. And zip code. 85306. Now, we're going to adjust this. All right. Fill out these conditions right here. Okay, we can't auto-populate, so we're going to have to hand type these things in. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, approximate square feet with 1606. Lot size range. Lot size does not have much of an effect as people think. All right? It's not going to bring in that much value. All right? We're going to use that year built. This house was built in 1984. No pool. And parking, 2-car garage. All right. Now you can add other items on this, right? Like one of the items we want to add is fireplace. Right? Fireplace is only bringing about $1,000 difference, but you know, like I said, instructional purposes only. Come on, fireplace. It used to be right there. I wonder why they got rid of it. Association fee. I used to have a motorcycle. I didn't ride around like that guy just did, but still. All right. All right. So that's a great way to describe our property, right? And then we go to the next step where it's going to bring in, there's the property. All right. We're good with that. You want to use that location, don't want to move it around anything, then it bumps over. These are the 3 that we pulled out. Right? Those are the 3 prices that we looked at. Now we do the adjustments we talked about. Right? And what we're going to do with these properties is we're going to adjust. Right? None of them have pools, so we don't have to worry about that. They all have the same parking, so we don't have to about that. So we can auto adjust just off of that. Oh, sorry. Remove. Return to same thing. All right. And when we make our adjustments, right, let me show you. Click on it, pulls up the property if you need a review over the property, right? But we kept good notes on these things. So now remember the 3 things that we had on this thing already. All right. Property number 1. Okay, we're looking at Grand View over here. Our issue with that one was the kitchen. All right, remember that had an older kitchen. All right, so we go over to the appraisal. Okay, remember the appraisal there where we're talking the difference between a full remodel and remodel kitchen? That was a $20,000 difference. So this Grand View one, its issue was the kitchen sucked. All right, so to make that a comp for our property, we have to add the value as if it had a good kitchen. Right, that confuses a lot of people, but that's the math and how that works. Plus I cannot get this thing to show up completely on the screen, right? Then the next one we got was 48th. Right, that one was not updated at all. Remember, using the comps and everything. Full remodel is a $20,000 difference on that. All right. So actually, you know, I just did that wrong because this is $10,000 for the kitchen. Remember, I already added 20, so now I'm backing that out. Nope. All right. This one is missing a remodel. So now this one needed a remodel because it's not updated, so we're going to add 20 to that. All right. We're increasing the price of these things based on they're not as good as our property. And 35th was pretty good, right? We didn't have any changes for that, right? So here's our two adjustments, right? So then we go to the next step. All right, and this comes up with our market and summary, everything like that. It's done the adjustments, so it's changed the purchase prices. All right, if these houses sold looking like ours, this is what they would have come in at, right? So much more detail when you're doing this for real. You're definitely adding fireplaces. I should have checked to see if all those had fireplaces. Notice we don't have swimming pools. All right, we're not bringing those in and pulling those things out. We're not playing around with walk-in, closets, all that kind of good stuff. All right, so we make our adjustments and then we go to the next step, and it throws you up with just basically a ballpark. All right, this recommends you at 318. Right. Or at 418, right? So even though we're looking at properties here, right, where you could say, hey, wait, right? We got these ones at 225 or 425. We got these, this other one, these other three that we adjusted up. Remember, it's that first one. This comp right here, the one on Granville at 385, that is dragging everything down. But notice, it does come in pretty much between these two. Right. So at that point, that's where the price, if you wanted to put it on the market, that's a price that you could see it at least appraising at. So that being said, what do we do after that point? All right. We're sitting here looking at a house that came in at 418. All right. In this case, 418.33. Probably want to go up to 420, maybe 425 on that. Let people argue with you. Print the report up, send it off. Get ready for your presentation. So I just did Park, and we just decided, the comps in the area pull in 418. Now, like I said, this was a quickie. All right. My first search. All right. I want to get it as close in space and time as possible. All right. Some appraisers, like one on this appraisal that I was showing you, he actually went like more than a mile out and 11 months back to pull in value, pull in a comp. Ignored the house right across the street that was pretty much sold within the last 3 months. Same builder, same age, same everything, except that one had a pull. So he dropped it as a comp because he didn't want to adjust for pulls. Right. And the best argument I would have for him if I was to steelman his argument is that I didn't use it because pools are so rare in that area of town. It obviously overblew the entire value way more than a normal adjustment would. Now, on these appraisals that you look at, if you, at a certain point, if you're adjusting a property more than, say, maybe 10% above and below, right? And in this case, at these price points, if you're making more than $40,000 worth of adjustment, you really don't have a comp to begin with. Dump it, try to find something else that you don't have to make as much adjustments to. Right? So these are things that we're constantly, these are mistakes that agents constantly make when they're pricing a property is, or after pricing a property, arguing with the appraisal afterwards, right? They come in, they want to talk square footage. Appraisers don't talk square footage, right? They don't talk price per square foot. Right? It's the adjustment. So if you're ever going to argue with an appraiser, argue with them over the adjustments that they made and the amenities. Right? Don't try to justify that your extra 100 square feet really should have been $300 a square foot instead of what he gave you. Work the adjustment angle. That's your best way to get these things going. So, well, wrapping this whole thing up, and that was like a very quick lesson on how we do these things. How do you do this yourself? Right? You, as the consumer, you have access to a lot of information that 5-10 years ago you wouldn't have. Right? You can go on Zillow. You can look at old sales in your neighborhood, find them. Do what I just did. Look at the old Zillow listings. Look at the old MLS listings. You can go to the state taxes. the county tax board, find out the square footage of these properties, make those kind of adjustments, right? The numbers that I was talking about, that you just saw, $20,000 for a complete remodel, $10,000 for an updated kitchen. You can sort of make those on the fly. Don't think your house is as good as you think it is. All right. That's where a lot of home owners get lost on themselves, is they overvalue things like it's a dollar for dollar. I put $5,000 in my bathroom. It should add $5,000 in value. All right. Did you really add $5,000, or did you spend the $5,000 that should have been spent on that place over the last 40 years to get it out of 1980? All right. That's a really good question for it. If like we covered roofs, air conditioner will add value if it's brand new, like first year brand new, right? Doesn't bring a lot of value to it, right? But an older one, yeah, it's working. They'll be okay with it. They're not going to really knock that off on you, but roofs are something they're really big on. Carpet, right? You notice a couple of these pictures, you had buckling carpet. Appraisers instantly going to look at that and consider that needs something to be replaced. A VA appraiser will actually call you out and make you replace it. Right. So that takes, and that just helps you it just helps you understand more what the value of the property is. Or you can do it the easy way. And the easy way is call Ray. Seriously. If I won't do it, I'll assign it to one of my agents and, use it as a training example for him. But, any agent out there can sit up there and say, hey, how much can you, here's a Starbucks gift card. Can you do me a CMA real quick on my property? Right. So I know if I should bother to refinance or call up my lender and tell them to take the mortgage insurance off. So hopefully this was useful. I'm going to wrap it up and start going into film production over here. Thank you very much for watching. It is the 4th of July weekend. There will be a lot of parties. Okay, parties include alcohol, and they can include swimming pools, all right, and boats, and all other various ways to get yourself hurt. All right, so be careful, be safe, watch your drunk people around you because they will be drinking. Don't play with the fireworks like I did. All right, and take care of yourself. You guys have a great weekend. Work your circles, and we'll see you next week.